with Annabelle. What you have for us?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to tell you guys what is happening in our school community at Cheshire High School. Normally, I have my peer Rowan Scazzolati here, but he is actually at rehearsal for our school play, so I told him I would be more than happy to take over. So one of the first events of this month that was really big for Cheshire High School was that we were able to host the first in-person curriculum night since 2020, which obviously that's a very, very big thing, especially for those who attended from the class of 2026. We had a lot of 8th graders and their families learn about important information regarding our program of studies, new graduation requirements, now with those new requirements with our underclassmen, and many elective opportunities at CHS, which I personally think is one of the best things about CHS, and I'm very happy that the 8th graders got to hear about that. So now underclassmen are kind of going through that course selection process and figuring out what courses they want to take and what their trajectory is going to be, as you know, a lot of them enter that upperclassmen part of high school. So that's a very exciting thing. And as an upperclassman myself, I really do enjoy it, and I know Rowan does too, helping our underclassmen and giving them advice on classes and things to look forward to. So that's really exciting for us. New for 2022, College Board is administering the SAT electronically. So on Thursday, March 24th, juniors are going to be taking the SAT on their district-issued Chromebook, so that's very exciting. NHS just hosted our Matchmaker survey event for Valentine's Day, which was it's always a hit for the high school. What it is in advisory, students are sent a survey to fill out, and we get reports based on our answers, who we're compatible with in the school, and our zodiac signs, and our birthday buddies, and things like that. So it's a fun thing that supports NHS and also is something that kind of brings the school community together. So that was really cool. And actually, just yesterday, we had an advisory that was hosted by the Rams Against Racism Club, as well as the Safe School Climate Committee. And that was centered around Black History Month and honoring that important time of this month. And we're excited to continue that support for Black History Month next Friday, when we have students who are enrolled in a Black and Latino Studies class sharing their presentations and projects about their findings throughout Black and Latino history, which we are all so very excited to attend and see, especially in such an important time of year and this month especially. So now moving on to some athletics information. The regular winter sports season is beginning to wind down, and playoffs are starting next week, which is so exciting. Indoor track has qualified athletes that are competing in state open championships starting on Saturday, so we can't wait to rally behind them. The wrestling team is competing in their state championship on Saturday. Girls basketball has qualified for league tournament beginning on Friday. Boys basketball and hockey are wrapping up their regular season next week, and that could be followed by possible playoffs as well. And spring sports are in action, and we're excited to start getting those signups underway to begin in March. So we are very excited to support our teams who are coming to the end of their winter sports season and starting to wind up for our spring sports season. So as the weather's starting to get warmer and we're starting to hopefully move out of winter and more into spring, we're excited to see everything that our school community can start doing and start engaging in to help bring us all together and keep our great year going. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Annabelle. Any questions from the board? Ann?
Thanks, Annabelle. I always enjoy your reports, and you did a great job covering for Rowan.
Thank you.
We'll make him feel bad next time. I thank you for reporting about the presentations for the African American Latino Studies course that has been piloted this year. We had a nice presentation on it at curriculum committee meeting, and I'm pretty sure that we would be invited to see these presentations. Marlene, can you speak to that?
Yes, we can certainly arrange for that. I know we had also talked about maybe filming some of it with Mike to have some to share with the full board for those people who couldn't attend.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Sam, did you have a question? Oh. Any other questions from board members? Seeing as there are none, Annabelle, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, but you can certainly go home. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Up next, we have a great presentation for a school partnership. I think this is Sam and Dr. Solon.
I'd like to call her up, Dr. Solon. So we would like to call up Miss Elizabeth DeChico, who is the recipient this evening of the School Partnership Award. I'm really excited because I'm kind of giving something to one of our own in a way. So the parent teacher, oh, by the way, Mr. Woods nominated Ms. DeChico. The Parent Teacher Association is an important and integral part of every school, and the support the DOT PTA contributes to its faculty and families is both unparalleled and appreciated. The DOT family has been very fortunate to have the wonderful assistance of the PTA, as it has provided abundantly for items and experiences that have benefited the students. Liz DeChico is a very important part of the DOT community. Not only does she help lead the DOT PTA, she is also a parent representative on the DOT Safe School Climate Committee. Liz's insight is one of a parent and a professional. As a teacher herself, Liz has a unique combination of perspectives that are valued by the DOT administration and the Cheshire community at large. Over the past challenging years, Liz DeChico has never wavered in her support for DOT Middle School and all those who are part of the school. DOT Middle School sincerely thanks Liz DeChico for all of her time and effort over the years. We do not know what we would do without her and are very grateful that she is a part of our DOT community. The Cheshire Board of Education thanks Liz DeChico for going above and beyond for the students of Cheshire. This is well deserved. Congratulations.
Ms. Rosenberg, what does one of our own mean?
She's an educator and so am I, so
Okay, wonderful.
I'm very proud to be.
Okay, thank you. One of our own.
Mask on?
Mask on. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sam, Dr. Solon. Up next, we have a special award for the CABE, Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Award of Excellence. Dr. Solon.
This is almost an annual event that we have the opportunity to recognize this individual with a special award provided by the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. So I'd like to invite Matt Planetta up to the podium. Matt is a teacher at Dodd Middle School, and he is an honoree for the fall of 2021, the Bonnie B. Carney Award of Excellence for Educational Communications. And he was an honoree because he created with his students digital storyboards, trying to find ways to connect during the pandemic. He had his students in 7th and 8th grade identify what their favorite childhood stories were. They created digital readings of those stories and shared them with elementary students, and they were wildly popular with our elementary students in town, having several testimonials from various teachers across the district. Nick Guerreri at Norton said, "This is great. Thank you. I teach 3rd grade at Norton. We have some beginning readers, And one of the things we've been doing is voice recording some of the literary works and curriculum ourselves for our emergent readers who can't yet read the text independently. My students love being able to watch a video storybook as opposed to hearing a read aloud from me every time. So our students were helping their peers, and it was just a great, certainly award-worthy effort on Matt and on the part of his students. So congratulations, Matt. Congratulations, Matt. Do a quick photo. Congratulations.
On behalf of the board, congratulate our award winners this evening. Thank you so much for your dedication to Cheshire Public Schools and our community. Up next, we have a presentation from Dr. Solon and a much anticipated COVID-19 update. And just for a point of order, there's an audience section afterwards. So if folks have questions, I would ask, hold off until the audience will probably answer more of them. Hopefully the presentation will answer more. So Dr. Solon, you're up.
Thank you. I think it's probably easiest if I just read, for the community, the letter that I sent out at about 5 o'clock this afternoon that reads, "Dear Cheshire families, it's been the intense focus of our leadership team and Board of Education to make sure that our students had the tremendous benefit of safely attending schools all day, every day for the past 2 years. I'm proud to say that we've done so while many other school districts have not. We've made these extraordinary efforts because we know that attending school full-time is in the best interest of our children emotionally and academically. As the pandemic appears to be loosening its grip, I still have the goal of providing safe access to all kids and staff every day. When the governor announced it would be a local decision, I solicited the opinion of the same 3 people I've turned to help, who helped us ensure that we were in school full-time this year and last. They are Executive Director of Chespercott Health District, our district physician, and our district nursing supervisor. In collaboration, we identified metrics previously used by the CDC, positivity rate and case rate per 100,000, with what the CDC strongly advises to be a critical component to warding off the impact of COVID-19, the vaccination rate. The team felt that meeting 2 of the 3 of these criteria would provide a strong likelihood that our ability to have people access school would not be interrupted. I'm thrilled to share that as of this afternoon, we have met the required 2 of 3 identified metrics to safely transition to a mask optional environment, effective when the state of Connecticut mandate expires for schools on March 1st. Per federal requirements, masks will be required on school transportation. We will continue other mitigation measures such as distancing at lunch until March 15th, 2022, when we will review our COVID-19 absenteeism and make further adjustments as necessary. I had shared in the original draft of this plan that we would continue to monitor the data each week and make necessary adjustments. What has become apparent over the past 2 weeks is that the number of individuals being tested is so low that it can dramatically skew the positivity rate. As such, we will remain mask optional unless directed to reverse that decision by some authorized authority. Everyone in our community is passionate about doing whatever possible to keep their child safe and happy. Defining what that means is incredibly difficult in a situation when bombarded with conflicting information. This plan, while not perfect, was created to best ensure our students and staff to continue to have safe access to school every day. I'm very excited that we're in a place where we can safely make masks optional again and focus exclusively on providing the tremendous academic, artistic, athletic, and social emotional experiences Cheshire Public Schools is best known for. Thank you for your patience and support as we navigate these incredibly challenging times. Sincerely, me. So that kind of brings us up to speed on, where the situation is at the moment.
So I have a question. For those that may not be aware, there's been a lot of discussion well, lack of discussion, I guess, between State Department and Department of Health. And this past Monday, you did have a meeting with SDH and DPH. Did they indicate any guidance or mandates coming down after the 28th?
They didn't indicate that they foresaw masking returning on the 28th. Unfortunately, with this pandemic, I guess it's a never say never, but they don't see anything on the horizon. They did indicate that they would be releasing more information, hopefully in the very near future. So, we'll look to that when that comes out. But right now, there hasn't been any directive from SDE or DPH.
So is DPH going to release some recommendations, not mandates, sometime next week?
I think that's the hope, that they provide some guidance and information, but we don't have any knowledge of that this time, that it's imminent.
So barring any,
Dawn, I have a question.
not right now, so barring any,
Oh, okay.
later, you're coming up next.
Oh, yeah.
So barring any faux pas from DPH, unless the authority tells us otherwise, we'll be mask optional without metrics starting March 1st.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Constanti, is that,
Oh, yeah.
we'll get to you. Give us a second, we'll get the board to ask some
Oh, no,
questions.
absolutely.
And the audience section will be happy to. Faith, please, yes.
2 years of being patient.
Okay, so, thank you. There's still that June 30th date out there that the legislation has authorized. Do you know what that means? Do you know how that's going to work? Is that what you're waiting for?
Well, to my knowledge, the legislature has extended basically executive authority, the emergency status through June 30th. Under that legislation, the SDE and DPH could reinforce a mask mandate. But again, they've indicated that they don't see that on the horizon, but I guess things could change is the way they're looking at it.
Yeah, I sat in on that call on Tuesday morning, and certainly I heard that from Charlene Russell Tucker. Not so sure it was is unequivocal as she was definitely of the local authority. I wasn't so sure I heard that so much from DHS, but maybe.
Yeah, well, again, there hasn't been much in the way of information from the Department of Public Health on this. They indicated that they were hoping to release information before February 28th. But, again, I don't have anything yet.
Thank you, Faith. Any other board members or questions? Adam?
Thank you. So just so we can understand what you just said, barring any actual mandate from the State Department of Ed or DPH, that the directive that you just stated will take precedence, and that we would have mask optional environments starting March 1st with
Correct.
no metrics.
Yeah. I mean, the data that we have with respect to the positivity rate, we had a day last week where we had 9 folks tested and 1 was positive. That's an 11% positivity rate. And so, with such a low number of tests, you can't get a valid read off of that, in our opinion. So the numbers have come to a place where our medical team feels it's safe to return students optional. And, like you said, barring any, authority from people who have that authority, I guess DPH, we would be mask optional.
Thank you.
Sure.
Tim?
Yeah, are you opening this up for board comments or just questions right now? The public, I'm not sure because it's
Whatever comments and questions you have for Dr. Solon,
okay.
fire away.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who are watching, so I just want to share some thoughts. I'll try to be very brief. So let's see. So going back about 2 years, March 27th, 2020. I was extremely nervous about this. I actually called for a personnel meeting with the superintendent on a Saturday morning because all I can remember was people were going to die. Lots and lots of people were going to die. I didn't know what the story was. That's what I remember. So we called for a meeting. We had a discussion about personnel and what could happen, succession planning, basically. Fast forward to the fall and sports. We were moving forward with sports. Football was being, there was going to be a lot less to do with football, but I was saying, well, there's other sports that have close contact and we shouldn't be doing that. This whole time I was being pretty, in my own mind, I wanted to be more restrictive with the masking in general. Fast forward to the August, September of 2021. My kids, I have, well, they were entering kindergarten and second grade. They went to birthday parties. They'd sit down at events, you know, for 20 or 30 minutes after the birthday party. They'd wear a mask during the activity, but then for 20 or 30 minutes, they'd be sitting there right next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, having, you know, pizza and then cake. I didn't know how I should react. The rates at that moment in time were really low, whatever, 1 or 2% last August or September. I really didn't want to wear masks when we went back to school this year. You know, these rates and stuff jumped up over the winter. My concern from 2 years ago on has been hospitalization and death. I have not really, we've had the flu for as long as I can remember, and we lived with it. I was nervous because I didn't know. I'm not a health expert, but we've been through all this. I've spoken with a bunch of parents in the past few months who've told me that they've gotten the Omicron variant, I think it was what it is. And I asked them, I said, what were the actual symptoms for your kids? And they basically said, not much. It wasn't something for the world to be changed over. That's not to say that there were not kids and people who died from this, but looking at it from a big picture, the relative situation was not terrible. For specific individuals, it could be absolutely horrible. But I wanted to get rid of the masking, and I didn't know what would happen. I think at this moment in time, I feel very strongly. I support exactly what the superintendent is doing. I appreciate the approach that you're taking, looking at metrics, trying to quantify it to some extent. And I think it makes total sense to me to do this. At the same time, I am cautious. I am concerned because what I saw as a parent of relatively young kids last summer, the mask came off probably in May. So adults were vaccinated by like April. By May and June, you know, I think it was my son who had a fever or something, called the doctor, the pediatrician. Should we bring him in for a COVID test? They said, you can, but the problem is this, all the kids are getting sick, and it's not with COVID. Generally speaking, there was COVID that was still around, but all the kids were getting sick because they've been masked for the past year. So my expectation right now is that there will be illnesses, but not necessarily COVID. That's probably my single biggest concern right now is I think there is going to actually, the mask come off and there could be quite a bit of illness because we're also not out of flu season. Flu season officially runs, I think, until April 30th. Anyway, just to go back to what I said, I appreciate very much what the superintendent has done over the last 2 years. Number one priority was keeping kids in the school system. There's been a lot of uncertainty over the last 2 years. We're at a point where the governor's order / law, whatever it is ending. We have the opportunity to do this. And I do think that this is the right thing to do because I've also felt very strongly for at least a year that with every cost, with every benefit, there is a cost. The benefit of the little kids not being the vector of the variants regrowing, mutating, and becoming something terrible for others. The benefit, one second, I'm almost done.
Let's just clarify, it wasn't a law. It was a mandate.
Okay, a mandate, governor's order. Yep.
Nobody's confused.
Okay, I'm not trying to.
No, I'm gonna go pee-pee. And then when we come back, let's just clarify that it was a mandate, not a law. And everybody knows what they did. Shame, shame, shame. Bad, bad, bad. Okay?
I apologize. I lost my train of thought.
We're not off the hook. We're not off the hook.
Mr. Costanti,
We're not off the hook.
there's public comment coming up next. Thank you. Tim, please continue on.
I wish I could. I lost my train of thought.
You were on the roll. I'm sorry you got interrupted.
I, I could, yeah, I can get, this is one of the things with my little kids. This is something that I actually have been very, very passionate about. I do believe that you have used good judgment over the past 2 years. Jeff, I appreciate that very much, including up to now with the making masks optional. And I do think, I mean, I really don't understand this mask prohibition that's happened in some states. I think that doesn't make any sense to me. I encourage kids who are in a situation, particularly in a family, a household, to continue wearing masks. I'm encouraging families to make that decision themselves.
Thank you.
So anyway, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any other board members want to comment on Dr. Solon's COVID update? See, Ann, yes, please.
I just want to thank Dr. Solon and your whole team for everything that you have done over the past 2 years, coming up with metrics to, in some way, be able to get us to a point where we all feel safe. I feel it's really the best move forward. I'm glad the state is lifting the mandate so that we can move forward on a district by district basis, because I think that communities need to start making these decisions. But I know that that doesn't happen without a lot of work, because our healthcare professionals, your health team, and you and your team at Cheshire Public Schools have put in so many hours making sure that we can feel good about the decisions that we're making and moving forward in a way that's responsible. And, you know, probably not everybody's going to be happy with the way we're moving forward, but I just want to say thank you.
Yes, Faith, please.
I'd just like to make a couple of other comments. I think history is going to be interesting to read in about 25 years with regard to how we all responded to COVID. And so I will refrain judgment. But one thing, you know, I read a letter tonight from the Southington superintendent, and I addressed the audience with this. This has been a really contentious time for all of us for 2 years. And the one point that he made that was really important is that these kids are going to be coming to school now, masked and unmasked. And we've had some pretty heady and hefty arguments about, you know, home, on the streets, about the viability of masks. And it's become political. And I hope and pray that this does not get into the classroom, and that the kids who are masked are not in any way taunted, and those who are not unmasked are not taunted. Parents have made the decision, and we've got to accept and respect what the parents have chosen for their children. And I think it goes not just the children, but the adults on down. So that's all. I appreciate everyone's patience for the last 24 months, and we've done a good job keeping our kids in school. So they've got a lot to overcome. Many of them have never been to school without a mask, and getting it off of them is going to be work. So let's be patient with one another, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Dr. Solon?
That's a really important point about how we treat each other after March 1st. So last week I reached out to Dan Lee, who is a coach and teacher, former Cheshire Teacher of the Year at Cheshire High School, who coordinates a group called our Peer Health Educators. And, you know, they've done a lot of presentations over the years at our elementary and middle schools, and they've already begun planning for a presentation that's really hinged on the idea that, you know, just respect each other's circumstances. You don't know why somebody is or is not wearing a mask. You have no idea. And that we need to be respectful of either situation and just kind of move past it. So We're trying to reinforce that message with adults, but I think it's really powerful for kids to hear it from kids. And so we're going to be doing that in the days preceding March 1st at the different schools.
Thank you, Dr. Solon. Sam, yes.
I just want to personally thank Dr. Solon. You know, last year I was not on the Board of Ed, but I will say this. A week ago, I sat at, a friend's house, and I did lose a teacher last year to COVID. And I appreciate your leadership because Cheshire, all of you, because I was not part of this board last year, and I watched you move and work so hard to keep our kids safe. And that's what it comes down to is, when that teacher passed away, I thought to myself, I hope as an administrator that we put every measure in place to protect our staff and our students. And so I would like to thank you for protecting our staff and our students here. That has made me feel very comfortable. This metric keeps us somewhere safe, somehow, some way to fall back on, that we have been at the forefront of making sure we get ahead of this pandemic. So again, I appreciate everything you guys and Dr. Sloan have done.
Thank you, Sam. So just to summarize, in case people have not been following along, it will be masks optional March 1st without metrics, barring any, I don't know what the word is, from Hartford, but I'm confident. So a little color on that. I spent a lot of time on calls with CABE, SD, DPH, as board check-in meetings of every school district throughout the week. This has been discussed literally the moment after Governor Lamont made his message and decision. And kind of funny, as soon as he made his decision, my phone started ringing from legislators calling me, asking what we're going to do. And it's been hectic. CABE was not consulted in the governor's decision. CABE was not even invited to the press conference. And again, CABE is the Connecticut Association of Boards that pretty much all school districts belong to. They're a big voice at the table. So that decision was made in a bit of a vacuum. And based on what I've seen in the last 2 weeks, it's caught SDE and the Department of Health off guard. So when Dr. Sloan came out with his metrics, I think even DPH was paying attention. And quite frankly, I don't think DPH was ready for this. So I appreciate you taking the lead 2 weeks ago of I know what's coming. I did have an issue with one of the metrics which you addressed. Like you said, if one person in the family gets tested, excuse the numbers. I appreciate you pulling that back. Again, this is the best guidance we could have gotten given what we have. So I'm really looking forward to March 1st, our kids being optional masks in schools. And I wish I can see the actual smiles on faces from kids who, as I believe Faith mentioned, started public schools with a mask on, probably in kindergarten. So it's going to be quite a treat if they choose to go optional. So I appreciate your patience and there's patience out there to this whole process. Granted, we're not completely through this, but we're on the right path. So I think this is great news. If I sound hesitant, I'm not ready to do a victory lap because we just don't know what happens politically. But this is good. So I thank you. I do appreciate your leadership. I know it's not quite over. It's just starting. Now there's the other side of this, which is getting our students reacclimated without masks, sense of normalcy, and other things. So again, thank you for working with us. We're going to move on to audience. So before we get into it, a couple things. Can you just have a show of hands on how many folks plan to speak tonight, roughly? Thank you. I'm going to extend audience to 20 minutes, which should give everybody a chance to speak. Usually it's 15, but since nobody's going to go up there, it's a good thing. So a couple things I have to read, bear with me. This is our standard policy statement for public comment. Cheshire Board of Education welcomes public comment. We always do. We ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to leave the microphone and allow the next speaker an opportunity to comment. Depending on how we go along, I may extend the time if more people are going to speak. We'll see how that goes. Please state your name and address for the record when you come up to the microphone. We ask that speakers, you may offer objective comments on school operations and programs that concern you, but we will not permit personal complaints, defamatory comments of the board, personnel, students, nor against any person connected with Cheshire Public Schools. Such issues should be brought to the school administration. In short, let's keep it civil, not personal. This is not a public hearing. It's not an open forum. It's a board meeting in public. This is your opportunity this is us to hear from you. I know folks have a lot to say. and we're anxiously waiting to hear from you. When appropriate, we'll ask for clarification on the issue. We'll ask Dr. Solon team to respond, and also be mindful of the superintendent's report later on in the agenda, where if there is something that you want more detail on, we can spend more time later on in that meeting addressing some specific questions. Some things at my disposal. I never had to do this, and I hope I never do. But if the meeting gets out of order, disruptive, and pretty much impedes this, I have a few options I can undertake. One is to call for a recess. I think we did that last August to give everybody a chance to calm down and come back to the table refreshed. If things continue down a bad path, I can ask to clear the room, except for press, to keep the meeting going. And the worst case option I have at my disposal is to adjourn the meeting and reconvene at a later time. Nobody out there, that's not going to happen tonight. But just so folks are aware, those are the rules. This is how we conduct our meetings. That being said, who would like to speak first? You have 3 minutes. Mr. Mercado.
Hello, my name is Olivia. I'm a fifth grader at Doolittle School. I'm 10 years old, and I think that this is a privilege for someone like me to be speaking to you tonight. My last normal school year was second grade. I recently moved to a new town and new school. I only know the full faces of students in my class, and not even well. I haven't seen anyone else's full face in my school this is upsetting to me since I am new. It is so hard for me because it feels like a loss of friendship, a loss of freedom. I can't see people's faces. Playing basketball is also difficult for me with the mask on. I wear glasses because I have astigmatism and other eye issues. Wearing a mask fogs up my glasses, and it's frustrating even though my mom has tried all different things to stop the fog. This has also stopped me from wearing my glasses. This is the third school year for me to have to wear a mask. I am glad that on March 1st, I will be able to see all of my classmates' faces, most of my classmates' faces, teachers' faces, and the faces of everyone in my school. I hope that we can go through with the rest of the school year without masks. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight.
Thank you, Olivia.
Robert Cotto, 1146 Wolf Hill Road. I'm going to take it in a little different direction. Can I get a show of hands from the Board of Ed and people out in the audience that's worried about the education that our children are getting in our school systems? 2 on the Board of Ed? Well, the systemic progressive curriculum out there in our country's education system now needs to be stopped and reversed. We need to make sure it doesn't get any deeper and into Cheshire's education system. The other thing I see is the lack of improper civics being taught. This makes me worried about the future of our children. We need to be talking to them a little bit more about the Constitution and their rights, the right of their freedom and liberties and pursuit of happiness, so they can see what's going on and give them a little bit of power for if some teacher or there's something in education that is incorrect or they shouldn't be taught, so they have that power to see that and be aware of it. And a little story, I'll tell you about my daughter, Sonia. She's come home a couple times of seeing things that she feels uncomfortable in some of the books in the libraries. Might be a boy kissing a boy or 2 girls hanging out. It's uncomfortable for them. And there's a reason for that. So be aware of that and what we're going to be teaching in curriculum coming up. My niece, Ava, she's also out here. She seen the same kind of stuff in the schools. She's also told me that in her school, they make her sit and watch CNN without having to watch Fox or any other opposing opinions. I think that's pretty sick. I don't think we should be doing that to our children. In school, we should be teaching the 3 R's, and get a physical education and whatever else. Let's keep politics out of our schools and look at it. If you didn't know, Cheshire's government is a Republican-held supermajority. We need to do our part and uphold the Constitution and the human rights of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We should not be beholden to the systemic progressivism and giving up of our freedoms for the fear of safety. I posted links on the Board of Ed, from Board of Ed meetings of various people speaking out about CRT, social justice and equity, were the terms they used. I've seen it, been told, and have been told of irresponsible woke sexualism that's being taught. What I've seen in these books.
Rob, time check. You got 1 minute left. Just
Okay,
heads up.
we've
Thank you.
seen in pilot programs this show up in the ads. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to reach out to everybody in this room, to reach out to the Board of Ed, Chairman Perugini, and to Faith Ham, the chair of the curriculum. And I'm also asking that the Board of Ed do this, and to ask to create a task force with 4 parents from every school, and possibly a rotating parent that would fit in each and every time, to create a task force, a curriculum task force. I also offered to be on one of the first parents to be on the Chapman task force. So that's what I would like you guys to do.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Colleen Debkowski on behalf of Iona Sanapetro. She's at 2071 Scott Road. I'm saying something in regards to, and I hope you do change the direction after what I am about to say. And I hope that you do a better job. I do think that most people in their hearts do try to do a better job by their own perspective. So given to what I'm about to say, please keep that in mind when I say that. I also like the fact that what this young woman said in regards to the children. Unfortunately, they are so used to wearing these masks. I don't want the discrimination to go the other way. This was created by fear of parents, of fear of adults put on children, and we need to respect these children's fears at this time and be cautionary and compassionate with them. And I hope that is encouraged in school. And I'm from Parents' Choice, by the way. In the end, freedom and humanity wins. And when we ring that Liberty Bell yet again, after all the cries, the late nights, the money lost, the memories we could have captured but was stolen from us, or the years of smiles on loved one faces, especially the children, we will never get back. The future history books will be written and will tell the time of this tragedy. And our future children will ask, who fought for the children? Why did they teach hate in school? Why did they try to steal children's innocence away by sexualizing them? Who were they that did these terrible things, and who did not defend the people and the children? And in that history book, the names will be written of those who did these terrible things and those who did not have the courage to defend the innocent and the vulnerable. Do you want your name in that book, on that list? Think really hard of the position you take going forward, and knowing even though there may be a mandate, that is not a law. You had the power to listen to the people all along.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Hauk, and I'm at 424 Cardinal Lane, and I'm a former teacher. And I was going to talk about the optional masks mandate, but now that that's been corrected, I just wanted to say, you said 3 metrics, Dr. Sutherland, that was laid out. And that is correct, that is good, but also there's a lot more to consider. We have to consider the mental health of the children. For 2 years, they've been wearing masks for 2 years, completely for 5 hours a day. And that's a rough time for little ones as well as the older children. Children have exhibited, and it's hard to measure, antisocial behavior such as loneliness, withdrawal, anxiety, depression, and suicide. There's a study saying that 40% of the young ladies, suicide is up 40% for young girls. These are hard statistics to measure, but this is going to be followed through many years to be corrected. I talked to a third grader just recently and asked him, gee, who do you sit with at lunch? He said, no one, because we have to separate too far away at lunch. I mean, this is the time that they socialize. Children need to socialize. So this is very important for young children, especially. And like she said, one of the people said they don't even recognize their own classmates because they're covered up so much. The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Victor Morthy, said masks are devastating, have a devastating impact on the youth, mental health, and well-being of young children. So you're doing the right thing, but we have to continue this. You said that they're still going to have social distancing. I was a teacher. We had clusters of children grouped together. They can't do that for the past 2 years. Let's get them together so they can socialize and start being children again. Okay, you're taking that away from them.
Thank you, Ms. Howe.
My name is Jonathan Houck, and I was smart enough to let my wife speak to you first. I want to make 3 motions to the board. I don't even know if I can do that. Motion number 1 is that we make this mask optional beginning tomorrow morning. There is no reason. The metrics have been met. The metrics have been met. I don't know where the metrics came from. They didn't come from the CDC because I've looked, but we have met the metrics. There is no motion number 2, mask optional on transportation. There is no reason for the children not to be required to mask up on a bus, get off the bus, go into their school and take their mask off. Okay? Motion number 3, social distancing stops immediately in the schools.
Mr. Howe, no, we can't do that tonight, but we do appreciate you bringing this up. And I would very much like to, but every time I do that, there's a meme on Facebook. So I'm going to wait till next week. But in all seriousness, Mr. Howe, thank you very much. So we'll keep this going. Who else would like to speak with the board?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ava Hartunian, and I'm at 1106 Peck Lane. I am a 7th grader at Dodd Middle School. And every day or every other day, I go to gym class, and people work out. They play soccer. They go to the workout room. Right now, we're playing volleyball. And after every class, I see people huffing and puffing. And when they take their masks down to breathe, my teacher goes, put your mask back on. And I look around, I'm just like, why? No one's near them. They're taking a breather, but she still says that. So we all walk around in the hallways, going to class. And when we're all huddled up in a crowd, the teachers walk out of their classrooms and they tell us to move apart. In a crowded hallway, we have no room. At the very beginning of school, the teachers took about a month to learn our names because they couldn't see our faces. Today, my teacher still gets me mixed up with a girl named Allison. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't be wearing masks at all. I mean, I don't know why we started doing this in the first place. They don't do anything. It's just... Also, I don't know if this is a problem with parents or teachers, but we do watch CNN every single Friday and social studies. And I shared my opinion one day, and people yelled at me. They told me I was wrong and stupid and that my opinion was dumb. I never said anything to them about their opinion, but they said that to mine. Why did they do that? I don't know who's teaching them this, but they should stop because my opinion is my own and they have no right to tell me otherwise. Thank
Go ahead.
What was the young lady's name again? I'm sorry.
Ava Hartunian, Hartunian. That's my daughter.
Ava.
I'm-
Ava, thank you, and thank you for having the courage to come up and speak your voice. It's much appreciated.
It takes courage. Keep me out of school. To do the right thing.
Well, my name's Amber Brucato.
Hi, Amber.
Ava's my daughter. I live at 1106 Peck Lane as well. I would like to know, has anyone watched Senator Ron Johnson's COVID second opinion 5-hour panel?
Conspiracy.
Has anyone seen it? Does anyone know who Dr. Mercola is? The actual creator of the mRNA vaccine? He created it when he was in his 20s. He is actually speaking out against this vaccine. He knows that it is damaging. He knows that it will cause reproductive problems for children, male or female. He knows that it's going into people's brains, livers, marrow, all different areas of the body, that this spike protein that they've put in this so-called vaccine, which is not really a vaccine, is dangerous, has not been tested. Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, all of them have lied. They've hidden all of the tests that they really didn't do. And yet, you guys still seem to want to push this on our children. I want to make sure that this town, and I'd like all towns, truthfully, probably the whole world eventually to figure it out, that this shouldn't be given to anybody. And nobody should be able to make a health decision for anyone. You make that for yourself. So I wish every single one of you, including you if you haven't seen it, it's a 5-hour video. It also shows the whistleblowers for our military who have baselines of their health, because if you go into the military, you have to have a physical, not just once, you have multiple physicals for the positions, the jobs that you do for the military. This is our military to protect our country. And they have been used as guinea pigs with this vaccination. And the baselines show that none of them had cancer, or out of like the 10,000 Army or Air Force, whatever branch of the military, the numbers were so low. But after these vaccines, they have skyrocketed in the tens of thousands. But now the lawyers that are protecting these military that are now sick and have adverse problems and nobody's doing anything about it, they have found that the data has been changed. So there's like false stuff going on even in our government, which we can't trust anyway. But now they're proving this. And Senator Ron Johnson has now put out that they cannot touch the data that these lawyers truly have. And now they're saying, oh, well, this wasn't right and that wasn't right. But, overnight we fixed it. And now there's only 17 military that have cancer and only 8 that have neurological problems when it was in the thousands. So my biggest issue is these vaccinations and pushing them on our children. So I just want to make sure that our town is going to be smart on that and not ever make that something where you have to go to school and have this vaccine. So thank you.
Ms. Brocado, thank you. And just before Amy speaks, 1 second. Dr. Sohn, someone mentioned earlier about the distancing. You mentioned that. Can you clarify that, what that is?
Yeah, so basically, we employ a variety of mitigation strategies in the schools, including distancing at lunch, which will be maintained until March 15th, when we'll review. Hopefully, we don't have increase in positivity and students out. We've had, good numbers recently. Hopefully that stays, and we'll review that on March 15th.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Amy, it's all yours.
Good evening, Amy Borden, 35 Pear Lane. This was written in prior to 5 p.m. tonight, so bear with me because it's still very relevant, I feel, moving forward. I am here in response to Superintendent Solin's creation of a universal mask mandate metric and subsequent policy for our school district that did not offer parents the choice whether or not to mask their child. If you plan to move forward with this medical team, I, along with other parents present tonight, request that the Board of Ed members please review and present the qualifications of the medical team assembled by Superintendent Solon. These individuals were granted final authority over masking our children, ultimately by you, the Board of Ed. Dr. Manisha Jutani, the DPH Commissioner and Infectious Disease MD that practices at Yale, is Connecticut's leading expert on public health in Connecticut. Her worldwide network, comprised of Ivy League doctors, serologists, world-renowned scientists and statisticians, and true medical experts, have concluded that universal masking in schools is not necessary at this time. Let me repeat that. The Connecticut Commissioner of Health dropped the school mask mandate last week. Yet here we are. There is no health emergency here in Cheshire. In fact, there is no health emergency anywhere in the state of Connecticut. That is why she was confident in her decision to lift the requirement without a metric. Neither Dr. Jutani or Governor Lamont have ever produced a metric such as this for unmasking or ending the pandemic, despite pleadings for one by the public and the media. How then does a local health director team with the district's physician and a nurse without any successful model in Connecticut as a basis to show these parameters for masking requirements above state law is required? These individuals' expertise do not supersede the expertise of Dr. Jutani and her team. Therefore, there are those of us that do not agree with our children being subjected to a pilot program or a pioneering of this 2 out of 3 parameter approach to universal masking. It is, at this stage in its existence, an experiment. We will be back to masking our kids when new variants hit or numbers spike, whether or not DPH has imposed restrictions. Think about that. Parents must be allowed to opt out in favor of mask choice. Lastly, in regard to the medical team, I'm wondering why we have not heard any expertise from them on cloth masking in schools. Nearly a month ago, the Los Angeles School District, a very liberal district, by the way, modified its masking policy to no longer allow cloth masks. Data on the effectiveness of masks and problems arising from masking is available, and it reveals a multitude of problems associated with them, including a rapid spike in mental health issues, speech delays, social emotional delays, dermatological problems, thrush, and the list goes on and on. How come we have not been given any report backs from the medical team on these issues? I would like a response to that, please. If you continue to mask the children, you do so at your own risk. Litigation is revolutionizing policies such as this one, which is riddled with governmental overreach and a complete lack of concern, compassion, or consideration for those individuals that medically need to opt out of masking. You can tell very quickly who has the highest understanding of the data demonstrating effectiveness of masks because they are wearing an N95 or better. Those are the only masks offering any amount of statistically significant protection from the novel 2019 coronavirus. That is a fact. That is based in science, and you can fact check that through OSHA and NIOSH. Cheshire Public Schools is not currently following the best practices for masking. So when somebody earlier said that they were praising you for doing everything possible, there's still no donning and doffing policy. There is still no written regulations as to how masks are supposed to be disposed of. So there are not the best practices. Teachers are not wearing N95s either. Please incorporate choice into the parameters that you are experimenting with at this time, or abandon these self-imposed parameters altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And if you don't mind, do you mind sending us what you just wrote? I tried to take as many notes as I can. I can't keep up. I definitely will read it. And I don't think we can respond tonight, but I'm sure Dr. Stone will respond to some of those questions for you. Thank you. Would any other members like to? Yes, sir.
Christopher Affey, 204 Peck Lane. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank everyone in the Cheshire Public School Systems for the excellent education my son Jake is receiving. He loves Dodd in his first year and is currently an honor student. Back in August, I stood in the same place and I said, I wish there was a metric right now to lift masks back in August for the new school year. And it seems like we're at that point now and beyond that because there is no metrics. It's just going to be unmasked. So I just wanted to give my opinion, and it's only my opinion of what brought us to this point. And first, I want to say what hasn't brought us to this point. First, it's people yelling at Maura Esposito at some meetings and trying to embarrass her. It's not people screaming at the governor and other legislators in public meetings. It's not parents who wrote emails to Dr. Solon and the Board of Ed with foul language. And it's not residents arguing with each other on Facebook. I mean, that's just crazy, right? What is it? It's because of you, Dr. Solon, your work in Cheshire. It's because of the work of Maura Esposito and her staff. It's the work, some people will disagree, but of Governor Lamont, my friend Liz Linehan, and others in Hartford, including Republicans and Democrats alike. All right. It is because of the DPH. It is because of residents getting vaxxed. Again, my opinion, and children getting vaxxed. It is because of masks. It is because of social distancing. It is because of the leadership of Tony and Adam, and I've had conversations with Tony several times. And it is the teachers who I work with children and make them feel safe all the time. I work with an excellent group of teachers. We're unmasking on February 28th or March 1st, whichever it is. And we're gonna have a great time still with our students and teaching them. And it is students that have done the right thing every day. All of my students have done the right thing every day, even though they hate masks, they hate social distancing, they hated hybrid learning last year. And it is also, Ava, you spoke, and I'm sorry that students made fun of you. I don't care what views are, students are doing the right things. I know some parents, you know, again, I'm in the minority, probably speaking up here of all these things. But I know some parents are nervous and some students are nervous about taking the mask off. But you did the right thing. You did the right thing for your children, and now we are in a better place. I absolutely support the removing of masks for all students, including where I work, and I support the policy. I did want to ask one question for kids that are masked. Will there be mask breaks in the elementary level? If you could answer that possibly.
We haven't resolved the schedule for that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Here you go, Chris.
Olympia
Thank you,
Brucato.
Mr. Affey. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All yours.
Olympia Brucato, 1146 Hill Road, Wolf Hill Road. Dr. Solon, in your video address, you said you wish you could please everyone. The only way was by giving choice back to the parents, and I think you know that. You said you want to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. In the future, you cannot wall yourself off with a select group of people to decide our children's fate. You can consult with them, you know, as indicated by Title 10 for Department of Education, but this decision should be made in conference with the parents who are active partners in education. Cheshire Public School Policy Manual, Mission, Goal, Objectives, and Community Relations assures a collaborative relationship between the students, families, parents, and the Board of Education. And item 4, to seek input from parents, guardians on significant school-related issues. Please don't erase that now because I have it printed out. The BOE and the superintendent, you should always confer with us, the taxpayers, on finalizing any decision. When you use terms and some of the reports that come out like CDC or vaccination rate or pandemic data, metric or medical advisory team, district physician, and conflate these words with an unknown science that is yet to be settled and is ever changing, conveniently giving cover to extend executive orders. It reveals an elite authority who believe that only they have the intellectual capital to make important life decisions that parents are too ignorant to make for themselves with intent to indefinitely suspend our sovereignty over our children. We cannot allow a select few to make policies arbitrarily. I read words like recommended, threshold, target rate, data markers that we conveniently don't meet that are subjectively set until an election year comes. And then we see how these tectonic shifts take place. James Madison once said, "We are right to take alarm at the first experiment upon our liberties." This new 2 out of 3 data metric experimental model encroaches on this idea. It deviates from consistent and fair application of established law, and it bypasses the consent of the governed, predicated on a constitutional republic. In the Connecticut State Constitution, that we've all since forgotten about. Article 1, Section 2 says that all political power is inherent in the people and that all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. And I have not seen that here for the past 2 years. I understand the Board of Education that you're doing everything that you can. I understand that you're doing everything that you can, but I want to remind you of our liberties because I think there is so much fear that we're going down the rabbit's hole and we're losing sight that we live in a constitutional republic and we're here to remind each other as a citizenry, as a body of citizens. Children's freedom to breathe should never be suspended indefinitely by arbitrary target rates that we may never, ever meet. COVID has entered into an endemic phase, showing that we will never have a zero infection rate. So using this metric model will only guarantee that masking go on in perpetuity or at the subjective will to whoever wants to keep us under their control. My fear is the indefinite retention of power through these means. So to our elected officials, with all due respect, as a parent and in the spirit of the Connecticut Constitution, I give you our consent to make these masks optional because parents should always be given the right to opt out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Olivia. We have time for a couple more comments.
Okay, I think you've met me before. I came to the last smaller Board of Ed meeting at Gareth Jones, 925 East Johnston, Cheshire. The fact that I'm up here speaking means there's a serious problem. You know, I've got a career, family, hobbies. I don't want to be here. You guys know how to do your job, right? So, you know, let me also state, you know, I have the utmost integrity and humanity to respect anyone's decision to wear a mask in the future or choose to get the vaccine. I will always respect that decision for them and their family. That's their choice. I want to share a quick summary of what I presented to the board in 2021. You know, very quickly, I explained how vaccines lack efficacy after 4 months and how they're much less effective against new strains of the virus, how they are much less effective than natural immunity by a factor of 15 times. The medical treatment is now proven not to prevent COVID infection or nor to prevent transmission to others. I also explained how our kids are not at risk from this virus. They get 0 to mild symptoms at best. There is no clear evidence showing why children need this vaccine. We do not clearly know the long-term B and T cell damage from our children from COVID injections. We do not know yet whether it's safe or effective for our children, nor do they need the injection based on their own natural immunity unless severely immunocompromised. Lastly, I explained how cloth masks don't work. I was a design manager for the latest generation of gas masks for the UK and US military. I've always known for a fact that they don't work, and people shake their head all the time, and even when I explain it, they're like, no, they do work, and they have no seal. They have no filter medium. They do not work. I've tested it. I can show you the lab results. So our children for the last 2 years wore cloth masks, ineffective. They sit down for 3 to 5 minutes at a table, sharing infections. It does not filter them at that level, okay? So even though I presented these facts, I was very quickly understood the board wasn't truly listening across the board, and no pun intended. They were quickly to correct me on all points and gave me the classic COVID narrative that we've been listening to for the last 2 years. The facts I presented in 2021 are now becoming common knowledge. You know, most of Europe has now relaxed or dropped all COVID mandates due to the lack of severity of it and the mild cold symptoms. Most developed countries are moving back to normal life. Kids in UK schools and throughout Europe aren't even required to wear masks. And even going back to mid-2021, we're extremely behind this trend, and the damage being done to our children is reprehensible. Our kids are still being forced to wear masks after 2 years. Cloth masks have been admitted to be mere facial decorations, even by the lead doctor on a woke and misleading CNN network that's lost its viewership by 90%. And by the way, if I find out my kids are just watching CNN, our kids are there to understand how to think, not what to think. The COVID narrative is failing, and most people now see the truth emerging, contradicting all the mandates being enforced by our establishment. This was never truly about the virus. We can clearly see this now. It was an effort to instill fear and control, and it didn't work. We all know cloth masks are political theater, and we can see the hypocrisy of our leaders. Adults can dine out, go to packed stadiums and public spaces. Even Coachella Festival with over 100,000 people now do not require masks or vaccine mandates. Yet our kids are the ones who continue to suffer, the ones who are the least vulnerable to the virus, the most trusting are still being coerced into wearing masks. The school board continues to normalize wearing masks, and adults can navigate all this madness, but our kids are easily manipulated. And as a parent watching this happen for 2 years, it ends now. I wrote this before 5 o'clock. You know, the pandemic is over. I wasn't going to send my children to school without a facial decoration after this date. You know, it just is what it is. It's time to allow our kids to see each other, to speak to each other without an ineffective decorated piece of cloth over their face. Stop using our children for your own political games and virtue signaling.
Thank you, Garrett. So I just want to make a few comments, a couple things. We all heard you tonight. We all heard you last year. We all have your letters. We all have your emails. They're in our board packets. If we didn't respond, we will. There's been many. I personally want to thank you all tonight. You've been incredibly civil, which is not it's expected. I think you, as much as you may or may not like what we do here, I hope you realize that we will always give you, anybody that wishes to talk to the board, time to talk with us, because it's this feedback, whether we agree with it or not, that helps shape a lot of things that we do. So thank you. Thank you for the comments tonight. I took a lot of notes. They're recorded. They'll be in our minutes. I know that we can't go masses tomorrow, even if we wanted to, due to this, because it's a standing mandate that 228 the mask stay in place. Now, if DPH lifts it by next week, we're happy to have a vote. Yeah, but we've been through this last year. If we can, between now and Thursday, we'll make that happen. Before I continue on, there's one more important piece of information before I close public comment. Some of you raised some points tonight, some concerns in the classroom. So we have several committees: curriculum, finance, planning, and talk about our topics. Mr. Mercado mentioned a couple ideas. We'll talk with Faith about that. But if you see things like this, please let us know. We'll look into it. And we do that through our committees. You can find a committee list on our board website. Please feel free to send in details and we'll work on those things for you. So thank you. Mr. Constante, public comment's over, but I will give you 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to understand what the metrics are, where Ms. Moore are, Nancy Stanton, Dr. Solon, if they could break it down for us so we could understand, so we're not in the same position in September. I'm not playing a game of mask on, mask off in September. I don't understand. I understand 30,000 people, 54 positive cases. I don't understand per 100,000. Does that bring us into Waterbury and Southington and Hamden and Wallingford? I'm just curious. The metrics don't make sense. And if you want to write it down on a board and explain to me, I have no problem explaining. I'm listening to what the metrics are. But if Ms. Mora can come up. Ms. Mora? Mora? I didn't think so. And Ms. Stanton, are you there? Again, I didn't think so. So this is a joke. So if you want, let's write it on the screen and tell us what the metrics are per 100,000, Mr. Solon. If you could explain. I'm not very educated, but I understand 0.002% is 54 people. I have a shot at getting struck by lightning at 0.002%. At 0.007%, slightly higher, I have a shot of a 747 falling on my head when I walk outside of my house. I have no problem wearing a helmet. I just want to know, and I'm not making a joke, where we stand with our percentages. I know 100%, you can look it up, 0.003%, I can find a four-leaf clover. So let's look into what's going to happen in September. Don't gaslight me and tell me that today it's over because you know that there's going to be people here. What's going to happen in September, October, November, December, January? I'm not playing the mask on, mask off. I don't consider this a win. This is nonsense, okay? Your Reich, your regime, whatever you want to call it, SS, I don't care. And when you went on to CNN, let me ask you one question. When you went on to talk on CNN, did you talk to anybody? Did you take a vote before your metrics went out? Or was it just, I'm going to say my metrics and I'm so smart and everybody's going to listen? It doesn't make sense.
So, Mr. Constante, hang on. Stop. No,
Mr.
no.
We're
going to have a point of order. Hang on.
I've listened for 2 years.
No.
I don't need your. Tell me what's going to happen.
It's your profanity.
What's
you
gonna
call
happen
him a
in
coward.
September? What's
emailed
gonna
him,
happen in September?
Swears to the emails.
I didn't email.
This
What?
comment is over, and if this continues on, the room will clear. We'll continue the meeting.
What's gonna happen in September?
This meeting will be
You're-
over
Exactly.
if you continue.
You're a coward.
Yeah,
You
thank
want
you.
to. You want to hit it so you could say dismiss.
It takes a
What's
coward
gonna
to call
happen
someone
in
a coward,
September?
Mr. Constanti,
What's
but you
happening
are
in
out of line.
September?
We are not going to continue on this path. I'm going to ask the board to take a 10-minute recess.
No.
The room will be cleared. When we come back, we'll continue the meeting
What?
with
What?
reporters.
No, explain to me what happened.
Can I have
in
a motion
September.
for a 10-minute recess, please? Second. All board members in favor? It's 4 in favor. We're not taking a recess. When we adjourn, the meeting will resume without public audience. Thank you. So a little procedural so folks understand what I had to do earlier. I announced at the beginning of the meeting per our policy and per rules of decorum that we only keep meetings civil, and it was up until the very last part, which folks saw. Only have a few options in order to protect folks from being assaulted verbally and otherwise, and as well as, and it's still going on in the back of the room. We recessed the meeting, give folks a chance to clear out the rooms and continue to conduct business because we do have quite a bit of business tonight. And I just want to say that unfortunately, for better or for worse, freedom of speech is a privilege we have. Some abuse it, some don't. But I could tell you that this man next to me, Dr. Solon, has taken ridiculous amounts of abusive emails from certain people in this community to the point that I'm pretty sure they're going to be in our meeting minutes tonight. I encourage the public to read them. So I'm pretty sure that if it was our kids and receiving end of that tirade, we wouldn't tolerate it. We shouldn't tolerate it from adults. So fortunately, it is what it is. We're going to move on for the benefit of Cheshire. So my fellow board members, we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is actual business, starting with reports of standing committees. Curriculum, Faith.
We had a meeting Monday, February 14th, actually covered quite a bit of material. Began with just a review. A question has come up about how the public, how parents can submit questions or requests for reconsideration of library and classroom resources. And Ms. Solano had done she just researched a number of options. We looked at what other schools are doing, and they were submitted through CABE. And at this stage, we only have samples. I believe have included them, or they're available for you guys to review. And I think what we need to do is kind of pull amongst ourselves what's important, in terms of the strategies we pursue, or the what is the word I want? Just the steps we take to develop a review policy. It will have to go to policy at some point, and how the two committees work together remains to be seen. But we will take it up again in March or April to come up with a formal motion and make recommendations to pass on to policy, which will then pass on to the board as a whole. The rest of the evening was informational items, but quite interesting. We talked about two new programs, physical ed programs, one with bike safety, and that's going to be at the elementary level. A special shout out to Jim Jenks and Doug Levins of the Cheshire YMCA, who were able to obtain grants, come up with just a boatload of bikes, and a trailer to transport them. And they're going to go from school to school to school and teach bike safety to the elementary kids, which is great. And then something near and dear to my heart, a golf unit. And the Cheshire, we've got an initial grant from the Cheshire Education Foundation using First Tees lessons and materials, and basically we're going to teach our kids how to golf. But for those of us who have golfed, it is a emotional challenge for sure, and we're going to teach them sportsmanship, how to hang on to the clubs and not throw them, mulligans, but all those fun things. But anyway, just the both of them sound really good, and they will be again moving from school to school to school on a rotating basis, or at the elementary level. Then moved on to a review of, it was Tim, I guess, at the last meeting who had asked about career courses. And so we had a great review. We actually start the kids in middle school with Kristen Castellano was talking about the Unified Arts Program at Dodd, and the kids take electives in engineering and production, robotics, digital design, multimedia, and consumer electronics. So they begin to kind of work in these areas that could potentially develop into careers for them. We then discussed or listened to a presentation by Michelle Catucci, and I wish the parents were here because I was going to hold this up and say, anyone who has a high schooler or eighth grader will get this. And it's just an invaluable guide about how to help your child, steer your child through course selection and club selection, and in some cases, internship selection. Just in turn, to if they express an interest or a certain career that they want to pursue. So it's an amazingly rich document. So I hope that it does get the play it deserves. And then Sean McEwen and Leslie Pear gave us an overview, again, another overview of the CT and business departments at the high school. And then the next to the last item we went through is what the kids are reading in high school. And there is a canon that the department has developed, and so the reading program discusses whole class texts, independent reading and nonfiction reading, and they all are very neatly and intellectually blended together. So finally, we just ended with a brief overview of what the 2024 SAT is going to look like, and Ms. Harrigan adjourned before I even asked, so we were good. So that's my report.
Can I add something?
You may.
Like you just intimated, Faith, I wish the parents were here, who were here earlier. But for the benefit of anybody watching, we had a great curriculum committee meeting on Monday night. And there was a lot of enthusiasm, and the teachers and department chairs and administrators were showing us all the great things that we are doing here in Cheshire Public Schools. So it's not all negative for those of you who witnessed sort of the unpleasantness of the last few minutes. There's some really good stuff going on. And as Annabelle, our student representative, mentioned right at the beginning of the meeting, there will be presentations on the class that is piloting the African American Studies and the Latino Studies, that program. They're going to be showing their presentations for others at the school, and hopefully we'll be videotaping some of that, and so that will be available for viewing as well. And I'm sure it will be very impressive. So thank you.
So that's my report. Thank you.
So we had an Economic Development Commission meeting that Dr. Solon, Vin, and Marlene came to this past week. And there's certain members on that commission that brought up this very topic. So this is a wonderful tool. They were asking, what happens if, your son or daughter is not interested in going to Cheshire High School, as Cheshire High School has historically been geared towards college preparatory classes. And so this I'm going to be sure to share with them. So thank you for this very much, Faith.
Don't thank me.
Well, thank you to the district for
yes,
having
there
this.
you go. The team.
The questions from the board on the curriculum committee. Thank you. Up next is finance. Mr. Grippo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will hand the report over to Mr. Massiana for the financial update.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will make the finance report very, very quick this evening. The board members do have the report as of January 31st. Really, nothing has changed since December. The budget is still tracking quite well. I would like to just point out, really two things on the the pandemic front, and it's on the last page of the report. The intraday cleaning that we've been doing since last year through this year, we are ending that as of April 1st. We've notified our vendor. We believe it's no longer necessary at this point in time. And that's consistent with where we are with the positivity rate and the other numbers that we've been discussing. Also, we have put a soft hold on tents for the spring, but we hope not to need them, because if the numbers continue to decline, the tents won't be needed. That tent cost is about $150,000. And again, if we do have to do it, we will. That would come out of our ESSER funding. And to the extent we don't use it, we can use the ESSER funding for the learning loss opportunities that all the board members know about. So that's it on the finance front. I can talk about medical benefits also. The good news here is that January marks the first month that we're in the new HSA plan year. And as expected, and certainly we were all hoping that claims would start to subside. They did. Our claim month was $843,714. That is the lowest claim month that we've had so far this year. What also helped this month is that we did receive, which I had mentioned at our last month's meeting, we did receive $370,170 in stop loss reimbursements. That's from claims that exceeded $175,000. So for the net for the month is our fund balance, our reserve fund balance actually increased by $342,000. So as of the end of January, the medical benefits reserve stands at the $1,391,000, which is about 1.55 months claims. So obviously, we hope the trend continues. We know that because we're in January, it will take several months for employees to meet their HSA deductible. So the claims, barring any extraordinary large claims, which is always a possibility as we've learned, our claims should stay relatively low compared to the first 6 months for the year. And I say that in a hopeful manner, very much so. So that's the finance and medical benefits reports. Any questions? I'll be glad to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Massiana. Very happy to see the medical benefits potentially break for the better. We'll stay hopeful on that front. Is there any questions or comments from Mr. Massiana? Seeing none, that concludes the finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Gripple. Up next, planning, Mr. Martelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been 2 planning committee meetings since the last time we met as a full board. We're going through the process of not only adopting the plan for 22 to 23, but also the 5-year capital plan. And, I don't need to explain to all of us up here, but to those watching at home, we're trying to be as thoughtful as possible as we embark on the school modernization effort with Cheshire Public Schools Next Generation Phase 1 going hopefully to referendum this coming November. So what we did, we decided the February 2nd meeting, we actually had a meeting where we toured the various schools. We started off at Highland Elementary School, then went over to Dodd Middle School, and then over to Doolittle School to see where a bulk of the projects that are being proposed are, to actually see them in the field, to kind of wrap our arms around, so we just aren't seeing them on a spreadsheet. So planning committee met, also Faith and Adam joined us, which was great. So we can spend some time really digging in and taking a look with Rich Clavette and Vin Massiano and touring those school buildings. The February 10th meeting, we dived a little bit deeper into having seen the things in the field and actually seeing all the numbers on a spreadsheet, and had a great discussion. I would characterize it as where we thoughtfully went through all of the projects, looking at what phase 1 of Next Generation is going to mean to the district, and then also kind of thinking out over the next 5 years. I mean, this is not set in stone. The first year was what we'll propose to the Board of Ed, to the Town Council rather. But these things, as I've seen for the past 2 years, sometimes become fluid as discussions continue and the district needs potentially change. So just the original capital budget for the 22-23 year was provided to us with an ask of $5,605,000. After going through that plan, there's going to be a major ask potentially of the town voters when they go into the voting booth this coming November. So we want to keep the buildings in great operating condition. However, we don't want to have a slew of projects before the voters when we're potentially going to have two $50 million asks for two new elementary school buildings on there. So thoughtfully paring down the projects to not have too many things going to referendum while also maintaining safe and healthy of the school buildings. We revised the $5.6 million budget down to a $2.6 million ask, actually a total of $2,610,000. And if I had a sheet here that was easy to pull off, I'd tell you exactly what we're doing. But all right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to run through this just because I think it's important for us all to hear. So 22-23, this is what is proposed by school building. So we're going to start with district-wide projects for acoustic ceiling tile replacement in the amount of $100,000. Flooring replacements district-wide, another $200,000. The Dodd Middle School fire alarm control system for $650,000. I'm going to come back to that one. Highland School expand parking general paving for just planning money for $50,000. Entrance modifications for traffic flow improvements for design funding for another $50,000. Cheshire High School, $225,000 for HVAC improvements for air conditioning phasing in. Dodd Middle School, $120,000 also for HVAC improvements for rooftop units. Another $200,000 at Dodd Middle School for individual classroom ventilation improvements. Doolittle School, $100,000 for unit ventilator replacements. Cheshire High School, a cam lock for the rear electrical service. That's for the generator for $60,000. $310,000 for exterior lighting improvements at Highland Elementary School, and $220,000 for a full building emergency generator at Highland School, and then $100,000 in district-wide repaving. Roof replacements district-wide, another $125,000, and then $50,000 for design funding at Doolittle School for roof replacement there, and then another $50,000 for window replacement planning money for the school for a total of $2,610,000. Now, the goal of this, back to the original $5.6 million and then paring it down to the $2.6 million, the one item that we decided was important, which is a life safety issue, is over at the Dodd Middle School, which is a $650,000 ask for the fire alarm control panel. Now, that system is operating. It is old. It is in need of, I'm not gonna say it's in need of replacement. So the parts are hard to come by, and the risk that we run with that panel system in that building is if there is a total failure, that building, there has to be a night watch put into that building or a fire watch put into that building, and it will take months and months to replace it. Every room has to be re-outfitted with smoke detectors, and everything has to be tied back into the panel. And so if that does fail, we're in a major, major situation with our middle school. And so the planning committee, we debated this back and forth. This would be on the ballot along with the two elementary schools, but we do think that it's so important in order to do this work. Not getting into, what's the next phase is going to be, but if Dodd Middle School is not rebuilt or it is going to be gut rehabbed, or whatever happens with that building, if the town decides to do something else with that building, the fire alarm panel will have to be there and will have to be operating. And that wouldn't happen for several years. And so we just see that it's really important to take care of that now. So with that, I know I kind of went on a little bit longer than I normally do. I'll take any questions, and then if not, I have a motion for the adoption for the first year and then the 5-year capital expenditure plan for the district. Questions?
Thanks, Andrew. Or this actually could even be for Vin or Jeff. The 650 is the only. So right now we're thinking potentially two new schools, 650 for Dodd Fire. But were there any that aggregated up to the 500,000? It might be another referendum number. I thought we were discussing one other, but I don't. So for the public to understand the
Yeah, there
question.
was one other that would have pushed it, which was lavatory improvements, which we took off. We
Okay.
pushed that into another year,
All right,
so
so
it
we
wouldn't
took
be
it-
on the ballot.
Okay.
So there were several that would have been on there, some work over at Cheshire High School, et cetera. So we're pushing those off into the subsequent years in the 5-year plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the report before we get into the motion? Sam?
Just for clarification, we have the 650 as an additional this coming referendum.
November. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else? Mr. Martelli, you have a motion?
I do. Move that the Cheshire Board of Education approves the 5-year capital expenditure plan and budget for improvements to current buildings in the total amount of $32,532,500, with $2,610,000 to be funded in year 1, and with annual allocations as follows. For 2022-23, $2,610,000. For 23-24, $8,065,000. 24-25, $7,895,000. 25-26, $6,875,000. And 2026 to 2027, $7,087,500.
Tim, do you second? Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing as there is no discussion, the motion is Cheshire Board of Education approves a 5-year capital expenditure plan and budget for improvements to current buildings in a total amount of $32,532,500, with $2,610,000 to be funded in year 1, and with annual allocations. I might as well read these as follows: 2022-23, $2,610,000; 2023-24, $8,065,000; 24-25, $7,895,000; 25-26, $6,875,000; and finally 26-27, $7,087,500. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you, board.
Great.
Motion passes. Anything else, Mr. Martelli?
Just school modernization, if you're ready.
We're ready, as always. For
You ready? All right. So school modernization, there was the executive steering committee had a call with OSCGR, which is the Office of State Construction Grant Reimbursement, back on February the 3rd to discuss the current status of the Cheshire Public Schools Next Generation Plan. The town management staff was there, Tony and myself. Certain members of the town council, BOE staff, and Colliers were in attendance on the call with Michelle Dixon and other OSCGR representatives. On that call, I'll just kind of give a quick summary of it. The superintendent did a great job giving basically a 2-page overview as to what the plan will be and what the grant application will look like in June 30th. That would be submitted if everything goes well on the town side. It was really refreshing to hear the representatives on OSCGR. One statement that they made was that they haven't gotten a large application from us in over 20 years. So I thought that was promising. Another unsolicited comment that they made, they were happy that we were going with the elementary school option versus the large middle school. And generally speaking, talking about ensuring that our public spaces, i.e. the cafeterias, were large enough in order to accommodate large lunch waves in order to not have to feed kids early in the school day, and to design the school to be characteristic of the community, which I thought was great. So all in all, I think the call couldn't have gone any better. If anybody wants to correct me on that. It was a good discussion, and right on the heels of that, the town council did take it up at their meeting on, let's make sure that I don't mess this up. Town council meeting was last Thursday night, I believe. And there's a series of motions that have to be made as part of the application process. And the town council approved the plan at the last town council meeting. So they resolved the town council accepts and approves the Next Generation Phase 1 plan for the construction of a new elementary school in their place of Norton Elementary School, and will call for a referendum after approval of the capital appropriation for said plan. So that's another step in the right direction here to get this project moving forward. Also, they did allocate additional funding for traffic and environmental studies on the Marion Road area, as well as for the Casartano plan, and then updates for the enrollment study and some additional funding for our project leaders, co-leaders, who has been helping to guide this project locally for us. Other than that, I think, SLAM, who's doing the enrollment study, we're expecting that to come in around April, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody. And so things are moving forward. It's great to see the town council continuing to forward the project forward. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so I don't know if I missed this, but with regard to the ed specs, I think, so one of my concerns is sustainable construction. What do we know when those meetings are? Those, I mean, it'll come through the planning committee. I'm wondering if there's other meetings that'll be happening in relation to that.
The ed specs will come to the board for approval. And, again, at a high level, the purpose of the ed specs is to make all the programming recommendations for what will be in the middle school for the special ed program, the music, gym. It's really not a construction document. It is a document that will spell out what will be included in the school, and then that document will serve as a basis for Colliers to determine the size of the school and begin to develop a final estimated budget. Within the scope of that document, there'll be some general statements made, including sustainable construction or anything else that administration or the board would like to include. So there'll be a general statement about the technology needs, but it won't be specific in that we're not going to recommend a certain, model Chromebook or a certain type of smart panel, but it will be referenced in general. So not quite there with the construction detail. That's not the purpose of the ed spec.
No, so I can understand it's not the purpose of the ed spec, but I know that the sample ed spec I looked at for another school, and it included things like, for say Darcy, if there was a new Darcy, it was literally recommending mini toilets because that's what the kids need at that age. So it did get into the construction to some extent. So please keep me in the loop on that.
Well, again, the board does have to approve the ed specs. So, as soon as they're drafted, the plan is to share them with the board, not just to show up and ask for a vote.
Okay. And
we're not there.
Who drafts it? Colleagues?
That's got to be developed. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves. So I won't.
Yeah.
We're working with Dan Hansen, who's a consultant.
Got it.
And it's being, done in harmony with our administrators, superintendent, assistant superintendent, myself.
Teachers.
Thank you.
Yes, Sam.
Actually, along the same lines of what Tim is asking is the process of it, I guess, Vinny, is does the planning committee get an initial overview and then the full board? Or are we all just going to get the specs all at once and have a first read on it?
I wish I had more ed spec experience. As Andrew said, this is our first time in 20 years, which would have made me more of a kid. So, we're still kind of early in that process, and I hope to be able to answer your questions in the very near future about what are the next steps. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, I would just say still planning projects. I would imagine when we're all going to see them, not to have endless meetings, but if planning committee wants to have a meeting of the whole, review them, that's an option, but we'll all see it. But certainly allow planning to make time for any additional work required for it. So again, it's kind of new for us. So it's exciting, but a little confusing. So I understand. We'll figure that out. Any other board members? Yes, Faith.
I realize this is like putting the cart way ahead of the horse here, but so we've all been following what's been going on with Diamandis and Colangelo. I'm getting all these names mixed up. And I know we're not even at the hiring of the construction firm yet, but are there going to be safeguards in place? I mean, I don't even understand. Are we potentially going to fall into the same traps that some of these other districts are now finding themselves? I mean, I'm concerned, and
Sure.
because we're what, 18 months, potentially 18 months away.
Right. I think everybody on the board in the community would agree that we want to find a builder who provides the best product at the best value. And I think that's kind of what you're referencing with this other community, where there was an initial bid, then there was a leveraged, like, you have to take this the second time around. The projects that we're putting out would have to be obviously bid and evaluated. I think, if anything, given where we are in history, this might be the most visible and transparent experience that districts have had in a long time. So I don't have any evidence to suggest that. I'm not terribly familiar, other than what you read in the paper, with the other situation, but let's hope we get to that point.
Thank you. I just want to add, one of the other notable items that came up in that discussion on CGR is, again, as like they mentioned last year, which I think it was February, we met with them. They emphasized again the K through 6 focus, K through 6, special education needs. They did say they want to see security reflected in the ed specs, ultimate design specs, at least mentioned, because security, as we know, is something that's near and dear to the safety of our kids. But they also cautioned, as they do with all school districts, not to over design. Don't build a twice the size of an auditorium, knowing that your student capacity doesn't require it, because they will not approve that, as they've been cracking down on excess. So I thought it went well, but there's still a lot to be done between now and June. So at least we're heading on the right path. So I appreciate everyone's time. If there's no other questions on modernization, we can move on.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Policy, Mr. Grippo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on February 8th, the Policy Committee met. We reviewed 5 policies for first reading. The first one was for community relations. The second was graduation requirements. For graduation, I'll just read quickly that the change in language, I believe, is in italics here. So it's in creating such student success plans, consideration shall be given to career and academic choices in computer science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The student success plan shall be created, if possible, in collaboration with each student and student's parent or guardian. On or after July 1st, 2022, the student success plan shall, to the extent it does not conflict with the career choices of the student or his or her parent guardian, include an academic plan that is in compliance with the board's challenging curriculum policy. So that was sort of the updated language per statute. We had a discussion about adding trades to the discussion, but this was not, I forget what the term was, not all inclusive. So it lent to flexibility for that sort of.
Yeah, I think as Andrew was showing earlier, we certainly offer a lot of different pathways and encourage those pathways. We're just not going to limit it by indicating one or fewer.
So the next one is the grading systems. I think this was something that's been in practice for quite a while, but had never been codified, which was that the Board of Education is in favor of weighted grading. Or was it there? And there was a word change here. Dr. Solon, do you recall?
I'm sorry.
Well, I'll just read the italics. Board of Education in favor of weighted grading. Parents, guardians shall be advised as to whether a grade in an honors class, advanced placement, dual enrollment, dual credit, or early college is or is not given added weight for purposes of calculating grade point average and determining class rank. The grading system developed by administration subject to board approval shall reflect this. And then we had some updated language for individualized IEPs, individualized education program, special education program. Again, this is language inserted by statute, and this is already being done in practice for our school system, which essentially gives a birth to 3 coordinator or qualified personnel the authority to sit in on PPT meetings. Is that the essentially the gist of that?
Right, yeah.
Okay, and then and the last one, policy 6148, is a FAFSA completion program. Again, something that we already do, but it was this is an update for statute, which is legislation requires boards of education to adopt policy to improve completion rates of the federal student aid application, which we already do. I guess the only thing that is not in this minutes was that we actually made a motion to move all of these policies forward to a first reading for the Board of Education. So I'll just read off the policy numbers one more time. That the policy committee moved policies 1101.1 parent involvement, 6146 graduation requirements, 6146.1 grading system, 6159 individualized education program, special education program, and policy number 6148 FAFSA completion program moved to a first reading to the Board of Education. And then we adjourned at 7:15. Any questions or comments? Ann?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I have a question on policy 6146.1, instruction grading systems. So I want somebody to make me feel better about that added language. The Board of Education is in favor of weighted grading. Why is that necessary?
It was statutorily required.
If we have weighted grading, it's required. And we do have weighted grading. I can't recall ever not having weighted grading, and I'm looking at Dr. Reed here, who's been an assistant principal for many years at CHS, and the reason that we do have that is it does incentivize more rigorous coursework, and the students who enroll in those courses, it's reflected in GPA for status for valedictorian, salutatorian, but it's not, we don't publish rankings or anything like that. We're not a big fan of that, so.
Okay, so since we have weighted grading,
Yes.
the Board of Ed has to say that we approve, that we are in favor of it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Since Anne started the make me feel comfortable with this line of thinking, I have 2 areas that I'm kind of concerned about. 6146, I guess I'm old school, but really starting career and academic choices in 6th grade.
So that's not necessarily the case. They do career exploration. There aren't, in terms of course choices in 6th grade, there really aren't any. When you get to 7th and 8th grade, there are limited choices around some elective coursework, but students start to take interest inventories and things like that. That might give them some indication about things they might want to try as they get to the high school level.
Okay, so this is not creating that European system where
No,
you're going to go here
no.
and you're going to go here. And
No,
Okay.
it's very much just about, what are your interests? And hey, if you're really interested in, public speaking, maybe you want to go into the media or something.
Okay.
It just gives you an array of options.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
though? So what, would there be an argument to be made to change career and academic choices to career and academic exploration, if that's what we mean?
I'll review the legislative, wording on that.
Thank you.
We can discuss that in policy. Appreciate you guys bringing it up. We can certainly bring it back to the next policy meeting.
And then the other question I had had to do with the FAFSA applications. I just got wind of what is it? A bill 5038. I don't know if you heard this one that came out today that will require, as of 2025, require all high school students' parents to complete a FAFSA application as a requirement for graduation. That was submitted by Governor Lamont, and that to me smacks of just overstepping bounds. I mean, we didn't apply because we knew we weren't going to get it for our kids. So, so why would a parent do that? And you've got to deal with the law. And right now it's not passed, but at the same time, this may be a legislative issue, but this is, I think, really inappropriate. So, yeah.
Actually, I don't disagree that I'm not sure why we would need every single student to apply or require every student to apply, but we do have a high enough rate of FAFSA applications. We do encourage anybody, obviously, who's considering going to, a four-year school or continuing their education to access the FAFSA application. We have we won an award last year for large high schools that 78.2% of our kids completed the FAFSA. We were the highest of the large schools. And, it's a great thing if you do want to do that, but not everybody does. So I understand where you come from. I wasn't familiar with that legislation.
Tim?
Sure.
Thanks for mentioning that, Faith. I just have to piggyback on what you said. If that's the case, requiring all graduating high school seniors to apply for FAFSA, I find that absolutely ridiculous because not every student wants to or should go to college. They can choose different pathways. As I mentioned during our policy meeting, I think I mentioned during the policy meeting, one of our former board chairmen, Jerry Brittingham, went directly into the military. He didn't go to college. I think it's really valuable for people to be financially literate, particularly if they're taking on, for a lot of people going into college, it's going to be some pretty significant debt. And to have an idea of what they're doing, I think that would be really important. That's for students who would be going to college. I think it's really ridiculous if that is the case, the way the law is being proposed to require students to graduate to do the FAFSA. It makes absolutely no sense to me, when I really don't think it is appropriate for every student to go to college. There will be some who take different pathways.
If I could just add, I will send it to Jeff so you can look at it. There are carve-outs for if you're in the military or committed to an apprenticeship program, but everything, the way I'm reading it and the way it was pitched to me was that it's going to be a graduation requirement. So Jeff, I'll be interested in your.
I think we talked also in when we were reviewing this was that this was more of an awareness because I have worked in other districts where there wasn't an awareness that parents didn't understand that there's free money out there, and so this language was more so that everybody in Connecticut finds a way to connect with their families and make them aware that there's funding if you so choose to go in this pathway or this direction. And Cheshire is always, like Dr. Solon said, we've always been able to support our kids and families who wanted to go there. So I don't think this was more so for us per se. It's coming down to make sure that other districts do something about it. So this is just inserted, like Adam said, because it's part of the statute language. So.
Yeah, I concur with that, and we'll see where that mandate goes, if anywhere. I mean, the only thing I can think of, and Tim touched upon this too, is for kids that are not going off to college, but traditional college, but going off to technical college, or decide to go to our state colleges. As we all know, college tuition at our community college is essentially free, and I know quite a few graduates that went off to Gateway Community College, taking up technical training, and so I can understand, and part of that's to apply for FAFSA so you can qualify for it. I get that. But no, it shouldn't be mandated to everyone. So we'll see where that goes. I'm comfortable with the policy as written. It is the first reading, so we'll see if it evolves between now and the final reading. But thanks for bearing with us on this, Al.
And if you do have any thoughts or considerations for amendment, please email to me so we can have them on the agenda for consideration at our next meeting. Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, that concludes my report for policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grippo. Up next, we have calendar committee. So Ms. Harrigan, if you want to give an update, it'd be great.
Yeah, so on January 21st, we had a very exciting calendar committee meeting. It was also very efficient, I might add, which I appreciate. You have in your packets 2 proposed calendars. You have what we've come up with for the proposed 2022-23 school calendar, and we always work 2 calendars. We also work a proposed draft for the 2023-2024 school calendar for the next year as well. So if we're looking at the 2022-2023 school calendar that's proposed, you will note that that calendar was approved at last year's calendar committee meeting as the proposed. And this changes included from the proposal from last year, included things like removing the September 2nd as a day off and moving the April break to a week earlier and including January 2nd in the winter break. Many of the things that we did made some adjustments were due to looking at what area district schools are doing, which makes a lot of sense because we have teachers and who have kids in other districts. And so to align somewhat is just a sensible thing to do. There are also teacher representatives on that committee and very enlightening to hear their views on first days of school and having the short first week and maybe even a short second week before moving into full weeks, especially for the younger kids. So this proposed calendar we will be voting on, and a separate motion I will be giving you will be for the 2023-2024 school calendar, which is the proposed draft that we will look at next year and do the same sort of adjustments. Notable dates in the 2022-2023 draft calendar include the first day of school for students as August 30th. Convocation is scheduled for August 25th, and professional development days will be held on August 26, 29, and November 8th, 2022, and March 17th of 2023. So Cheshire Public Schools will be closed on the following days: Labor Day, September 2 through 5 of 2022, Rosh Hashanah, September 26 of 2022, Yom Kippur, October 5th, 22, Columbus Day, October 10, 22, Thanksgiving break will be November 24th and 25th, winter recess, including Christmas and New Year's Day, December 23rd, 2022 through January 2nd, 2023. Martin Luther King Day, now we're into 2023. Martin Luther King Day, January 16. February recess will be February 20 through 21. Good Friday, April 7th, and April break, April 10 through 14. And Memorial Day, May 29th, 2023. So with no snow days, the last day of school for students is projected to be June 13th, 2023. And the last day for teachers would be June 14th. Snow days will be made up June 14th through June 30th. And additional snow days beyond those 13 days, hopefully that does not happen, will be April 14th and move backwards. I will let you look at the review and approval of the proposed draft for 2023, 2024. I would like to not go into that one in as much detail, as that one is going to be looked at again in a year from now. And we'll do the same sort of moving things around and adjusting as needed, if that's okay with everyone. If you have questions, by all means ask.
That's great.
Okay, with that, can I make some motions?
Yes, Ann, absolutely. So just, we have these both on their calendar, so you can.
Right, but they have to be
Oh,
made
that's right. Yes, you proceed. You're right. I'm wrong.
separately, I guess.
Yes.
I'm just doing what I was told. Okay, so the first motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education adopts the 2022-23 school calendar as presented. Thank you, Adam.
Question. How many days in each year?
We're required to go to school by 180 days. The teacher contract's 185.
So we're at 183 and a half.
Well, 180 student days, 185 teacher days.
Okay, thank you.
So it depends who you are. It does. The 5 days are professional development.
Yes, Tim.
Thanks, Tony. Jeff, at this moment in time, do you have a sense of the early dismissals that you've done for giving teachers time to work with the students related to COVID absences and
Sure.
just in general? Do you have an idea right now of
Yeah.
what that looks like next year?
So we have early release days and contractual early release days. We don't have those scheduled yet. Once the calendar is formally approved, Marlene and our team work to identify those dates and get them on the calendar ASAP. So we put that out publicly.
Let me rephrase this. So I'm relatively new to the school system as a parent, only in the last 2 years, COVID time. My understanding in the last 2 years is that you had given some extra early dismissals in
Yes.
relation to COVID. I'm wondering about that. Do you think
We don't anticipate doing any of that at this time
Okay.
for next
All
year.
Yeah, I'm just
Or
thinking for parents.
Frankly,
because-
for the remainder of this year, fingers crossed that things continue to go well.
So specific then, I think we have a March 10th early dismissal. Is that a COVID or?
I'm familiar with March 24th. early
March
dismissal.
24th. Do we?
Calendar here are all contractual.
All right, they're staying then.
Everything for the remainder of
Just
this
for-
year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking for parent planning purposes.
Yeah,
Don't
everything
miss the
that's in
kids
the
at bus
calendar this
stop.
year
'Cause-
is
okay,
final,
got it. Thank you.
formalized.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion on the table? Seeing as there are none, the motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education adopts the 2022-23 school calendar as presented. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you, and it passes.
And then my second would be to approve the proposed draft for the 2023-24 school calendar. Also recommended by the calendar committee.
I think Faith seconds that. Any discussion on that one? You might still a draft and still in the works, so there'll be plenty of time to talk about a final draft next school year, correct?
Mhm.
Seeing there's no comment, the motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education adopts the 2023-24 proposed draft school calendar recommended by the calendar committee. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, and fellow board members. We have no understanding committees. In our packets, we have meeting minutes for the meetings held on January 20th and February 3rd. Well, it's already into February. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes? Then we can discuss if necessary. Mr. Grippo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Make a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes from meetings held on January 20, 2022 and February 3, 2022.
Second? Faith seconds. Any discussion? Changes? Seeing as there are none, the motion is that the Cheshire Board of Education approve the minutes for meetings held on January 20th, 2022 and February 3rd, 2022. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It is, any abstaining? Oh, all in favor. Oh, sorry. Unanimous. Thank you. Correspondence. So I know we have board members in our packets have links to all correspondence received pretty much up until just before the meeting. So you don't have to read all that into the record. And if you just want to give summarize what we got at your leisure. Otherwise, all the email communications in their entirety, for better or for worse, will be part of our meeting minutes when they're approved at the next meeting. So.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Secretary.
so should I be reading the 4 emails that are included in our packet that were asked to be read into the?
Yes, if you feel
Yeah.
comfortable reading those, I don't think there's
Yes,
an
I'm
issue.
comfortable.
Yep, absolutely.
But so just to explain what you just said, even if they weren't asked to be read into the record,
At least acknowledge that we received a communication from said person. It doesn't have to be read, that just so they know that we did receive it.
okay. These emails were asked to be read into the record specifically, so I will do so. The first one from Chris C. Good afternoon. Please make sure your medical team that comes up with the metrics is available tomorrow to clarify some major concerns. Everyone and anyone involved in the health decision-making of my children. The child abuse has gone on far too long and needs to end, and I will see you and your right tomorrow. I think that was today, and I think we saw that person and heard from him. Next one is from Ariel Harrison. Please include this in the public comment. Board of Education members, my 2 children attend Chapman School. I'm writing to express my strong support for using clear metrics set by public health and pediatric medical experts in determining whether and when masks should be required in schools. Masking is a safe and effective precaution against COVID-19. Masks have allowed our schools to operate in person during the current and previous school year, despite the ongoing pandemic. We are fortunate that COVID cases have dropped significantly recently, but as we've seen repeatedly, surges can still occur and cause widespread illness. The system of metrics Dr. Solon has recommended, based on the input of experts, makes sense and provides the tools to adopt policies that are responsive to the level of COVID in the community. Like everyone, I wish that COVID would go away. However, simply eliminating one form of precaution isn't going to achieve that. In fact, eliminating reasonable precautions at the wrong time, when community spread levels are high, could have the opposite effect and prolong an outbreak, potentially jeopardizing the ability to continue school in person. Less than 2 months ago, Connecticut was in the midst of a surge in cases. If that were to happen again, our schools would need the tools to respond appropriately. Setting clear metrics allows for transparency in decision-making. It will allow mask requirements to be removed when case levels are low in the community and added back responsively if cases become more prevalent. People are free to live how they like. You can go to restaurants and bars, host big parties, or do virtually anything you could do before the pandemic. However, our children have no choice but to attend school, and that places a higher burden on the district to assure that they can do so safely. While my family is fully vaccinated, there are many others with children too young to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or with loved ones who are immunocompromised and therefore rely on the precautions of others to stay safe. When COVID rates in the community are high, it's reasonable to require masks. When they are lower, we can remove some of these layers of protection. A set of clear, transparent metrics based on the advice of public health and pediatric medical experts will help to assure that these on-ramps and off-ramps can be well understood by the community. You are likely hearing passionate voices from all sides. Reasonable people can disagree. Unfortunately, this is a topic that has also been the subject of a great deal of misinformation. Our schools teach children to use information from credible, valid sources, and you as public officials should be held to the same standard. When you hire teachers and principals, you look for expertise and experience in education. In the same way, when you are looking for guidance on decisions about children's health, you should prioritize the advice of public health and medical experts. Please do so by endorsing an approach informed by those who are best positioned to keep our children safe in school. Thank you, Ariel Harrison. That was the long one. Next, from John Bruno, to whom it may concern, please confirm receipt of this message, Bob. As an educator and parent, I would like to thank Dr. Solon for all his efforts throughout the ongoing pandemic. Yes, it is still ongoing despite what some may believe. I'm not entirely sure why or how masking became such a political issue, but here we are. As a middle school teacher, I know firsthand that masking in schools is definitely not the most ideal thing, but when I ask my students about it, I rarely get significant pushback about wearing a mask. In fact, most of my students will leave their masks on during a mask break or do not ask for one. When I asked why, a significant majority said because they do not find it to be a big deal to wear a mask and that it does not really bother them. As with so many things, I think this is more of an issue the parents have with masks than the students have. This has been my experience in my school community and from conversations with other teachers across other schools and districts. It is not unique. Even my toddler does not complain about wearing a mask, and she would definitely make it known if she had an issue wearing it. I want to publicly support Dr. Solon's recommendations for mask guidance he published February 4th, 2022. Since the beginning of the pandemic, public health officials in Connecticut and across the country have relied heavily on percent positivity and cases per 100,000 as reliable measures of community spread. I appreciate that Dr. Solon and his team have decided to use these trusted data points to make an informed decision about a public health issue, rather than using the personal preferences and opinions of some, many of whom do not hold any higher degree in public health or medicine. I know many of us are eager to get back to a state of normalcy, and we are absolutely trending in the correct direction. However, it is my opinion that it is reasonable to use these metrics to make decisions about the community spread and use that to decide if masking would be appropriate or not. While that might be unpopular with some members of our community, I believe it to be a prudent decision and a responsible one. John Bruno. And finally, from Gary Rossini, dear BOE, I would like to have delivered these comments in person, but unfortunately I am away. I will go on to my comments regarding masking. I understand there is no easy and possibly no popular decision here. Ultimately, I think regardless of what side people fall on, people are going to be upset. As a parent, of course, I understand the passion. Personally, I would just like to go mask optional without the metrics, even though they appear that we have attained them or we are about to meet 2 out of 3 metrics. While I can't speak for all kids, I can say my kids play with other kids outside of school sans mask. Sports sans mask, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen teachers out without masks. To keep our kids masked, considering these and other things for me doesn't make much logical sense to me. In closing, it's really this simple. My first grader has never been in a Chapman classroom without a mask on. That thought makes me sad, upset, mad, all at the same time. While I understand protecting the greater community, I think Cheshire as a town has overall done that, and now I would like to see my kids get to have the school experience they deserve. While I may not like the outcome or tonight's meeting, I certainly respect the time, commitment, and effort you put into CPS Best Gary Rossini. And that's all I have.
And thank you so much for reading those. I know we received a lot of correspondence, much of it very respectful. And so just everyone that emailed the board directly, or CPS COVID-19 or Dr. Solon, we have all those. If you haven't been acknowledged, I'm sure you will in the next few days. So thank you for working with us. Moving on, and just for just time check, we're just past 10 o'clock. We do have superintendent's report. Dr. Solon.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this super short. I think we've had a dose tonight. The only thing I will add that Mr. White will, often proudly talk about presidents, and I've been to every presidential museum in America. I'm proud of that, and we share that joy. So when I got an email a couple of months ago that said that presidential cookies were available, I had to jump all over it. So our food service department will be handing out presidential cookies. They're like snacks. They're still healthy food certified and everything. So I brought a little package for each of the board members tonight to enjoy. So that's all I have. We could all use a cookie today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Solon. It's perfect. Ironically, I only have one quick update for chairperson. You saw my emails on CAPE stuff, and just trying to keep the board in the loop on what's happening in Hartford regarding to boards. Hopefully it's helpful. Ironically enough, Dr. Solon and I are doing a seminar on civility on March 8th with the CCM in conjunction with CAPE. So definitely some good experiences to share there. Anyway, beyond that, there's no new business. We do have executive session. I think we can squeeze it in and get out of here before 10:30. So do I have a motion to move into executive session to discuss bargaining group negotiations? And there's no action to follow, correct?
No action to follow, but you just need to include myself and Mr. Massiana in that.
Motion to adjourn the executive session discuss bargaining group negotiations with to include Dr. Solon and Mr. Massiana with no action to follow.
So moved.
Is there a second? And seconds, all in favor?
I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're okay. Yep.
Let her go.
All those in favor? Thank you. We're going to adjourn to executive session. There will be no action to follow, so not does anyone here, so we'll be here. We ask all folks other than Mr. Massiana, the board, and Dr. Solon to stay on as we continue executive session. With